My name is Tobias Åkervik. I work in Ericsson in Linköping and work in a project where we provide a CS pipeline solution that is an Argo workflow. We built a framework around it, so we send Eiffel events, and we use also Eiffel Intelligence for trigger on things and do a version uplifts based on created events, CLM events, and what more? Auto publish. And for years I've seen issues with the current issue or if it works. Today it is an organization that deploys intelligence, and they have the full control of the logs and things like that. We don't, as the user of it, don't have access to logs. Only we can view if something places check targeted object, and the failed notification event has via the REST API. But if those doesn't give anything, we need to do a report a ticket and get help from the Eiffel service team. And and some other things. And we have also this each Eiffel intelligence is have rules or aggregation rules, which is hard code or fixed in each Eiffel intelligence instance, and start to change are different. What different aggregation you need. So, and I've been also in talk with discussion with different people that want to have aggregation rules for test activity events and things like that. Ask me about it, but I'm no expert on aggregation rules in Eiffel intelligence, so I can only guess. So, I have at the Ericsson in my original work, I can work 10% of my working time to be innovative and creative to create something new. And this is one idea, and it's try to making something new, something work similar to Eiffel intelligence, but make it more dynamically. You don't need to have rules to define your subscription, what kind of event data you want to have, and what event to trigger on. And currently I've named it Eiffel Collector because it's just collecting events and not aggregating. So that's a little bit of background of it. Today it exists an Eiffel intelligence, and it's aggregates data based on a start event. And the most common one we use in Ericsson and that project I use is we use the artifact rules, which has the artifact created event or C as start event. And based on that, it do an upstream search to Eiffel ER, and it get all these event composition defined, artifact created, composition defined, source change submitted, and the whole chain. And it also do some downstream search also. I don't know, it's not exactly how it works, but it's one level downstream it can also aggregate. And so that's how it works today. And as I mentioned with the drawbacks with Eiffel intelligence is that it's hard coded in the instance or the service. If you want a new rule, you need to restart it or start up a new Eiffel intelligence with the new rules. And every event that consumes, then it's doing this aggregation, querying Eiffel ER, which type was load on ER, depends on what many events you have in your system. And it's no easy way for a user to see what's happening. If it's something face, then you really we're in the aggregation, or did it take the consumed events, or what issue can be hard to understand. It's so as I told earlier, it was if you don't get the answer by creating the aggregated objects via the REST API and using the failed if that doesn't give anything back, then you don't know what's going on. You need to have access to logs and go through the long and maybe messy logs. It's hard to find the issue. So what I'm trying to solve with the Eiffel Collector service system is that the abbreviation is easy. It will be no aggregation rules in the system, and it will be no aggregation in the subscription either. It's well, even in the subscription, you tell just if you want to have upstream events or not collected, and the system will just collect the event, provide it as a list, yes, a list of events, send notification with that to the CS system of the client. And the client needs to extract whatever data they need from the all event data that has been collected. But of course, you still write subscription condition, which event you want to trigger on, and when you want to do the notification on which event. To do some condition, what's event content, if you want the data.identity and this artifact name and a path that match that, then it's the notification. So yeah, and I will also have also make a more easy way to get the logs, more summarized logs about where in which phase in this processing the events and collecting event data it is, and if it's phase, you can easily see in which step phase in the processing event is, and that will be stored on separate service, and that service the user can query based on the event ID. The user need to be aware of which event ID was starting this processing the Eiffel event data. And also I was discussing about changing binding key or adding and remove binding key to the queue, the message batch queue and RabbitMQ queue. So you can easily add more things if you have an Eiffel event with different binding keys. I want to have those events as well. So I have some picture here. Now I'll go back to event telling how it works. So when you start up event telling, it creates a queue first, or maybe two queues, but one queue it's consumed from. And when it consumes an event, it consumes it. And based on the rules, it starts aggregate data and by querying people ER. Get back the aggregate data, store it in the database, and the next phase it try to match the aggregated data by go through all subscriptions that are registered. And if that match, then it will execute the notification, which can be mail. Normal would be REST post. I guess that is your most common use for triggering your CS system. And if it's no subscription match, then it's just not used. If we add the EC, the collector solution, and to right, we will consume the message bus, consume the event, and now we do the subscription matching to the start event. So if we don't want to proceed with this event, we throw it in the trashes, and we don't query ER. But if it matches the subscription, and if it has some requirement to have an upstream search from ER, then it will query ER. If not, it will go directly to execute the notification to CS system. So we will do the filtering already when start events. So to give an example, if you have 1,000 CLM events and it's only 10 matches, in this situation, we will only query our ER for 10 events, and 990 will skip here. And we do notification for those, all those that goes through here. In Eiffel Intelligence, you will do 1,000 Eiffel event processing, aggregate data, ask ER, and here we decide if we want to throw it. And this means we have done a lot of load processing, event processing, putting load on APR and that without using it. So with this system, we don't store anything else. We just process the event data, collect the Eiffel event, and do the notification. So we skip this part because, I mean, in Ericsson, it's often configured with the TTL, time to live. So the data is removed after some hours anyway. So why store it? So we just keep it in memory here, as long as we present the event. And not by the CS system. So we do first filtering here of the subscription event. And we don't have any rules in the background, so the system don't have any rules. It's this in the subscription you tell if you want to have option historical event data or not, or you would just want to have the event data that you figure out to notify. So it becomes a little bit dynamical, but it has some drawbacks. We can maybe take it later. Yeah, so this is how I plan to split it up to more microservices. Here is what the Eiffel domain or Eiffel main. So the message bus and the queue that the administration service created startup, and we'll have a subscription handler service that will mainly do the same thing as Eiffel do today. You can upload subscription and things like that, and it will store the database. And the logs handler service, the event worker will store the log base. So if it goes in an Eiffel event, then we store that phase that it passed that, and then starting processing ER. When that's done, it's stored here as well. And the key is the event ID, so you can ask this and see what's going on in the system. And the ID is that successful is maybe, I don't know, 1 day, and those that has failed somewhere we store for 2 weeks, just memory. But probably I will implement so you can compute like the database if you want to have that persistence. But mainly it will just memory this, remove it after some. An event worker is just a slave, and what it do is just consuming Eiffel event from same queue. So it's not a parallel. It's consuming one event that is free to take and do the event processing, matching with the subscription. So it's always syncing the subscription from ID to directly from database. So it would be the database connection. So it reads always from database directly. And do the subscription matching to the full event that they get. And if there's no match, then you just throw it. If it's a match, then it's go on. And but that's the event. Ask IP or if it's required. If not, if it doesn't want to have data from the event, then it will do the notification direct to the system. And the administration service is just mainly these first is just you can add from before you configure the default binding key. It automatically start up the Eiffel Collector queue. But via this you can add more binding keys to the queue if you have different templates with different binding keys. And the normal SQL computer or there's some other CI tools that you will administrate. You could have used these three services to add subscription. Add remove binding keys. But this service could expand more things that you want to administrate in the system. But the first will just administrating the binding keys. Yeah, and this service has an API you can just query on your based on your event ID and get what where are the processing of the event based on paste. So that's it about that. And I tried to do a comparison between the Eiffel Collector solution, or it's Emil that made this. I made the first person, but Emil made a new one that I copied. So we have the Eiffel Collector solution here, and this is how Eiffel Intelligence is used today in data services that we have in your example, and how it's come to their configuration. And here it's what's default if you use default operation in GitHub. Yeah, it's for it. I don't know if we should go through it all or
maybe some of the limitations you can mention. Or do you mention that?
Yeah, I mean, since we don't store the aggregate objects, you can't wait. For example, if you have artifact created event and then CLM event confidence level sent later, that you don't know, you just start and take the upstream. So that problem. So in IA you store in MongoDB for some time, or forever if you use open source default settings. So it's upgrade. So when that comes, it updates with the CLM event data. So in this solution, you need to make another trigger, another subscription that trigger on CLM event, go upstream on CLM event. And then you get artifact created event and up back in the history. But I don't know if we spend time go through all this step. Or we should discuss.
I mean, there are use cases where you said that in the normal case, it will be fewer queries to ER in the solution. But there are cases where the opposite will be true as well, depending on how your need for this information is. So for example, if you have an artifact that is created and then it's published to 10 different locations, then you would send 10 different artifact published events for the same artifact created event. If you then would set up a subscription with current EI and request to get notified when a certain artifact has reached a certain location, so it's published on a certain location. Then Eiffel Intelligence, you will have the artifact created as the start event. So Eiffel Intelligence will trigger on the artifact created event and perform the upstream search that we saw in this picture before, and store the object in the local MongoDB in Eiffel Intelligence. And then it will sit there and wait for published events that are to come. And then these 10 different published events will come. And Eiffel Intelligence will see, well, we have now published it to this location, so it will just directly store, add it to that aggregated object in the database without doing another upstream query to ER. So it will then just store 10 additional data onto the existing object in the database. And when it eventually matches the subscription, it will then notify the user that now we have reached this, we have found this match. With the easy solution in that case, it will instead trigger on the artifact published event. So it means it will actually trigger 10 times on 10 artifact published events. And for each of those, it needs to do an upstream search to ER to see, is this the right artifact? Because it needs to match with the artifact created event as well. So then it will actually do 10 queries towards ER in that case, and then notify directly. But it will not have any persistence event aggregated object stored in any database locally during the time. So it depends on your use case. I mean, and what Tobias started to say, this solution we're working on internally in Ericsson, the CI system, where we use EI today, in that solution, this would fit perfectly because we don't need to wait for those later events in that case. As far as we see now, at least, we think that that would be a much better alternative for us to use. Less queries we have.
But I see with a lot of these customers want to have some other aggregations. They want to create their own rules, but they don't want to do the work themselves and ask questions and what to do this and that. I mean, now we can make it more dynamical, and we hope we don't do it too complex in subscription, but do upstream searches. So it be simple as possible to the user. So, and you don't need to have a specific, EI instance or Eiffel Event worker for different rules. So you have same event worker for every subscription. And you can scalable also that event worker.
Another difference is also that, as you say, it's not an aggregator really, it's just a collector. So it actually collects all these events and then just sends all the event data in the objects where it notifies the external system. You know, in Eiffel Intelligence, these rules are very complex, but they also have the benefit of being able to structure how this returned data should look like. So it will not need to be all of the historical data from that ER query. It can be just the data that is relevant for that specific rule that you are using in Eiffel Intelligence. So the data sent back to the requester could be less with the EI solution, but it's, as you say, a lot more complex to set it up and to change those rules. Here you will need, as a consumer of this data or as a system being notified by the system, service being notified by the system, you will need to understand all the different individual events that are part of the complete collection of events that and parse those yourself and lay them out in order on everything like that. it puts some additional knowledge need onto the client that uses this.
Yeah. I mean, I just spent 10%. I have this 10% innovate creative time, but often at Ericsson occupies. So I mean, the last 4 weeks I've not done it. It was during April I had some time. Then I was a little bit off from Teams, and when I've done some 4 hours work, and then I'm like, lot of chats so to catch up and answer. But I mean, I had some time, so I've written some ideas and open APIs. Example, discussed it before meetings, maybe Emil and Matthias, Santosh as well at Ericsson, and try to improve it. And yeah, so I have some start report, and I've started to implement some code around in subscription handle service and writing some open API descriptions, definitions. So I have some to discuss around how the ER query syntax could look at in the API. And this I also started writing. So it's Python and Flask API libraries I've used. And this I have some base code for creating the queue and changing what binding keys and nothing, several binding keys. So it's mostly those that I'm starting to write code for. And I started up the Docker Compose with these components as I can test things locally. Currently it's only internal Ericsson, but I will when I reach further with the work, I will put it in GitHub probably sooner or later. But currently it's an early phase and a lot of discussions. Hopefully shopping also. Yeah.
I have a question. Is this is based on the open source version of Eiffel, or is it?
That is open source. This was.
I mean the protocol.
Protocol is open source.
Yeah, that's open. It's a Gen 2. Yeah. Oh, Gen Eiffel.
Yeah.
We have an old Eiffel protocol in Ericsson.
Yeah. Open source protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Question. Maybe this deployment perspective of this. Is it?
It's
currently really small, like some GitHub string. I define some things in the configuration file, and then I just get it.
I mean, all the services.
Yeah.
It's currently in Python, Flask, and Docker. And it will be Argo CD or something.
Yeah, but something so we don't. Well, I will maybe think about admin there. That I assume we don't even need. We shouldn't start something, then go in and start to configure and change.
No, this will default that. This you can add if you have some other some Eiffel Event here with some idle binding keys or something. You can add those to the queue. That's
okay. Yeah, well, so it's,
you don't need to know about RabbitMQ.
Yeah, the default could be in hand charts. The default configuration, of course,
yeah.
hand charts.
So you start up and you get everything in default. Yeah.
So. Okay, yeah. So then this yellow box is.
It's you. If you want to go in.
Do I need to do anything?
Sorry?
Do I need to do anything?
No.
Oh.
You can go buy ice cream or something.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm. We might tend to say then we need someone here that goes in and just get. We don't even need to. It's in the configuration file. Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's in the early phase anyway. So
I'm thinking you started with that, then you have to go to ticket on someone else that goes and finds this Lord.
No,
you wanted to get.
I mean it should be someone that is admin
of
this environment. So that's this deployment that have access. So
yeah, well, maybe you then, or maybe we can say Docklin deploys your framework deploys what it needs.
Yeah.
Doesn't that happen? So, I mean, I don't have the framework to say I need this, I create this, and I deploy them.
No, I take from our internal docking projects. I mean, then we will own it, I guess. Deploy it along. Maybe.
I guess there's no dependency towards random. That's just there to pass an example.
Yeah, because if you do end-to-end test of this system, then I remove this and replace it with some temporary service that I can query from test framework or check. So notification is done to some test collector of notifications, and I can query the test environment. And then I will use the rem to send the Eiffel Event.
No, but that's not really part.
No. So rem is not part of it.
No.
It's just the leftover one.
So it's
Well, I'm thinking of the end-to-end, so it maybe shouldn't be part of this
It's
specification.
dependent on the message bus and an ER that is compatible with the ER API.
Yeah, but they have a Docker image. Nasdaq is using it.
That's one
Yeah.
way to use.
And we would be super interested in this.
Yeah.
Really interested.
How does your use case of EI today differ from?
Very careful. Like this would be perfect. I think we don't use aggregation even. We use the Eiffel intelligence just to route different things to different places.
So you don't handle multiple events there.
Yeah, no.
Just use it as a REST consumer events.
Yeah, kind of.
That's quite an advanced REST mediator.
Yeah. So this would be perfect, I think, because you can skip the aggregations then completely. And
Yeah.
We have an maybe you need to show how the configurations are for these subscriptions. It would be interesting to see.
Yeah, maybe have it on VS Code. Have it.
Or we can take other questions. Maybe that's more interesting.
This is the Eiffel Collector subscription. Yeah. Yeah, VS Code. So, I mean, here you have maybe you should have the trigger first. So here you define which event type you want to trigger on.
The trigger that is from.
Yeah, but I have this control plus.
Maybe it's the light is not the best. So
Maybe sit closer.
yeah, that's not the best solution.
Yeah. So the event trigger is that what event should I start? Collect event from, or trigger is start from. And here you have, for example, this artifact that will start. This artifact event that has this artifact created. I don't know version, because you get new version all the time. I guess figure on every new version. Maybe this app should remove. And maybe there's some more component data. I don't know. And if this matches, then it start doing event check if there are an event collector requirements. If something that defined here, depends what you configure here. But if you configure an update search, then it will ask ER of an option search. If you don't, then it will just take the start event, the event content, and do a notification. A notification you have in the bottom here, so you can choose different type. So this is just an ID proposal, so it's not defined how it will look like. So you have an event trigger section, event collector section, and then you have a notification section.
And in the corrector section, there was a filter as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's not in this time.
Yeah.
That filters up there. So if the artifact created event in this case links to something which you also want to filter on in your subscriptions, you don't get all subscriptions just on that artifact. You can have additional filters there, but then they will be applied after the upstream query to ER.
So you would have one of these subscriptions for each subscription you want to have, right?
Yeah, one for event trigger. But of course you could, I don't know how we would have, but we could have it if you want to trigger different things and the same several things, do several notifications to several different things based on one trigger. It could maybe list several notification here.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
if that is the requirement as well. I don't know. You want to compare it to the Eiffel Intelligence subscription? Look like this. There's no condition. You can't tell what to query ER or things. Look like this. And here you build up what should be in the notification message, I guess. And here you have the requirements and which aggregate objects you want to match. So here you query things on things that are aggregated already. That is that you can query on the start events. Yeah.
Will like the backend, you said Python, will the backend service also be written in Python, or?
I mean, everything I read is written in Python. I prefer Python.
So how does it work then? You don't need to
you can parse the events directly to an object. So it wouldn't matter which version you were using. Right? Or
protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that
how
of
do you
course.
handle
That of course you need to. When it comes to new Eiffel protocol, you need of course. I don't know. I'm not Eiffel protocol, but do we need to adapt for it?
Has no connection at all to the protocol. I would say it doesn't know ultimately that.
Yeah, exactly. So it probably doesn't matter, right?
No. So everything is then contained in this.
Yeah.
Subscription.
It's based on how you define your filter then. Yeah.
So it's the only connection is maybe the binding piece, which is somewhat related. I mean, it's Eiffel anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
That's also configured as well. You can configure the binding keys onto the Helm chart. So if you would have some other schema of your routing keys or binding keys, also be fine by yourself. This is very generic. Could even be used for serial events.
Regarding the event trigger, in this particular example, you have exact values, but presumably you'll want to.
I mean, you remove it 1.23. It's the same.
Start.
Yeah, it's
Start.
I guess it's this. Then we can extract the version later.
But it is. Would that be like a prefix search, or does it under? Yeah. How would that work?
I guess it would be a stack match. I guess you. Yeah. Screen is still there. Yeah. I mean, you get that as Eiffel event, and then it's try to match this, and then it needs the exact. I guess will be exact match that you have there, and also that's everything you define need to match. If not, it will go to the trash bin.
You can have wildcards maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this was early. We haven't discussed details.
Yeah. Because in Eiffel Intelligence you have the.
Email path.
Yeah, exactly. Which is some kind of you can do some logic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's.
So we could have some wildcard or something, but I think it's more clear. So Jason boss. Maybe similar to email path. I don't know. Yeah, but this is an early phase discussion. This early, so we've done that super many hours on this.
Just checking the interest. I hear that you're interested in this.
Yeah.
Well, what about Exist? Do you see any use cases for something like this?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, I don't have anything immediate, but yeah.
We actually have you actually, Magnus, you wrote like an ethos trigger.
Yes.
Which is kind of a very bare bone, non-generic.
Yeah,
But it basically did the same thing. It took some events, and then if they matched together or linked together, they triggered ethos.
Yeah.
Which
pretty much.
This is basically the generic version of that.
It might be too generic, but
Yeah.
You only do like upstream queries, so you follow links upwards, backwards, and fine.
yeah, but the trouble is with this one really is it depends. Because what I want to do in that service is trigger on artifact published, because that's the actual trigger, but it doesn't know whether the artifact is interesting, and I don't want to make queries for every single artifact published, which is what this one do with the example yes. So it would be possible, but it wouldn't be very efficient.
It depends, I guess. What I said there about these immense ER queries, which might happen in that case, what's artifact published and maybe also conference and modified. It would be quite easy to put in a cache in your architecture there as well. So you don't query the ER. I mean, we all know that upstream events that the chain of events is immutable. It will never change. Downstream events will always change. But if you put a query towards ER, give me the upstream tree or set of events from this specific event, you will always get the same result. So it will be perfectly fine to have a cache in the system for such queries.
Yeah.
So for example, then if you get an artifact published event and you want to see, does this match the UUID for the artifact created here? Does that match my artifact that I'm interested in? You can have that information in the cache. You don't need to go to the ER every time.
Yeah.
So
what I just said before can easily be mitigated with a cache.
However, then, okay, but then you can use a filter, right? So you would use a pretty wide trigger on artifact published, but you would use a filter to narrow down on the artifact created.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if we go back to this example that we have, the matching. If you go down to the right now.
Expand it.
Oh, it was here. Yeah, okay, that's up. So here in this example, we trigger an artifact created event, but you will trigger an artifact published event instead, and you will filter on the data location then instead here. Say
Maybe.
for example, it can be wildcard any artifact published event, but then in the up there in the here in event filters, you would then filter on so the data coming back from the ER query or from the cache would then be filtered here with some specific data objects.
But then you're not interested in like forward surfing downstream. You trigger an event and then wait for.
For that particular example, at least, yeah. We might have other use cases, but I mean, yes, this would be interesting for something. I don't know what exactly yet. But it's a good thing to have in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you want to, you could do this in code. That's just a small matter of programming, but it's still it's hours of work instead of this, which is minutes. And that changes the game because if something takes minutes and not hours, suddenly you can do it and you can ask someone else to do it. You don't ask people to, you just write this little service and host it somewhere and good things will happen. Can't say that.
The good here is that you can write any Eiffel Event type in Eiffel Intelligence. You can only act on whatever is in the aggregate objects. So here you can take an activity event or something. If you want to. But this, of course, the downstream search is a drawback. There's some cache. Collecting objects.
It's not an event stream processor. It's an upstream query collector.